Time now for the Redbird Report podcast with the TV voice of the Cards, Danny Mac, and Cards World Series champion Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN.
Along with Brad Thompson, I'm Dan McLaughlin. It is the Redbird Report. Wherever you download your podcast, make sure you add us to your list. It's the Redbird Report, 101 ESPN. Well, Brad, happy Monday to you. We had a fun weekend. Cardinals took 2 of 3 against the Reds, and then we capped off the weekend last night out at Topgolf at the Big League Impact event for Adam Wainwright. And so many of the guys and former players came out, bunch of money raised, and we had a lot of fun. But congratulations to Adam, and I know you've been intimately involved with Big League Impact and emceeing and supporting, and your family was out there, so it's great stuff, isn't it?
It really is, man. Adam, as you know, he's got a real heart for what he does. There are some different guys. And look, anytime that you're helping people out, like it is a good thing. There are some guys that maybe have charities or help out charities that they're just not, they don't really dive in. They put their name to it, but it just kind of happens. Adam puts everything that he's got into Big League Impact. And as you know, when he's on the mound, he put everything he has into that. When he's at home, he puts everything he has into his family. Look, he's just one of those guys that is completely dedicated to the task at hand. So it's fun to help out as you have over the years with Big League Impact. It's fun to see all the lives that end up being affected. And it's great to be able to call Waino a friend and a former teammate because he's doing great things. He'll continue. I don't know how long he's going to pitch. The way that he's going right now, Dan, I wouldn't stop anytime soon if I were Adam Wainwright. And you mentioned it last night as we were doing you were doing the introductions and having a little bio on all the players for all the fans that were there in attendance. But you mentioned Adam Wainwright as a Hall of Famer and not just a Cardinal Hall of Famer. Dude is continuing to brush up that resume where Cooperstown's going to have to take a real look at Adam Wainwright.
I totally agree. I was thinking about this last night, and we were at our hitting bays at Topgolf, and thanks to them, they did a wonderful job putting on the event, and it was just smooth, and everything went well, and everybody's having fun. But I did think about you because your wife and your young son is to the left of me. I got my son and his buddies knocking balls everywhere, so we're all having fun. But I was thinking, man, I wonder if Brad has ever stepped back and reflected on this, where here you are, a Vegas guy living in St. Louis, and your former teammate in the minor leagues, you guys come up through the system and you become world champions in 2006, and now here we are in 2022. Still, you're affiliated in a big way with Cardinal baseball. Adam's still on the mound. If you just kind of reflect and go, man, what a road this has been with the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, who would have expected it? At least on my end, for sure. No, it is, and it was something like last night was a really fun one, getting to bring my son Dylan out there because he knows that I played, and he realizes that it was a thing. But then him getting to meet Yachty and Waino and Albert and just kind of be around those guys, it is something special. Longevity. I mean, Dan, I've had a different job now for a decade, and those guys are still playing baseball. Like Adam Wainwright, who, it was him and I in 2004 in Memphis. He is still doing this at a crazy high level. And you knew that he was so skilled, and you knew the talent that was there, being a first round pick. But it takes a lot more than skill and talent. It takes the work and the drive and the want to continue to do it. And he has that, and Yachty has that, and Albert has that. So the fact that they're still doing what they're doing, and I have a chance to not only witness it, but, be alongside you in the booth for a lot of these games, to get to talk about these moments. It really is. It's something special, man. It's something that just seeing the three of those guys together, and you and I were talking about it before we started the podcast. I've never seen Yachty and Albert have more fun. I've never seen these guys smiling as much as they are. They're out at Topgolf yesterday, and understand when I say this, they're great people and they are super nice, but this, wherever Yachty goes, people are all over him. Wherever Albert goes, people are all over him. There was a decade here in St. Louis where Albert couldn't go anywhere because he was just swarmed by fans. These guys are out hugging people and smiling and taking pictures. They're really taking it in their final year.
Absolutely. Let's reflect a little bit on what happened this weekend. Cardinals take 2 out of 3 against Cincinnati. And then look ahead to tonight, the first of 4 with the Pirates. Ollie, it was talking to both of us at the event last night, and he said, man, We got to win that game. We got to win Sunday. We got to win. We got to sweep that. That's the mindset of Ollie. He really, where Tony was 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, Ollie's like, no, I want to sweep. I want to get this. And they got into the bullpen of the Reds yesterday and couldn't quite finish it off. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good series for the Cardinals.
Well, I think that you're seeing the starting pitching really coming around. I know Dakota ended up giving up 6 earned runs in this ball game. I don't know if you would agree. I think that he pitched better than his line. I think yes. That it didn't look as bad. Now, he did have the inning that got away from him. Couple of walks, ended up, hitting a batter with the bases loaded. That ends up putting a dent in things. So he gave up 3 runs, but in that one. But there was a play out in right field that Donovan coasted on a little bit. That not coasted is the wrong word, but drifted towards it. He's still working towards figuring out right field and the way that you got to attack the baseball. That ended up going for a triple. That guy ultimately came in on a sac fly. So I thought Dakota did a good job. But I'm with you on the idea of and with Ollie of these are teams that you have an opportunity to sweep. I mean, we were talking about it during the game and before the game. That Reds lineup's not good. Like that is a lineup that you should be able to mow through, and they credit to them. I mean, they took advantage of some opportunities, but how about this? Another great advantage of a lineup that is worse than the Reds. I mean, the Pirates lineup, they cannot hit. So we'll see what the Cardinals are able to do and take advantage of this upcoming week with 4 games in 3 days, doubleheader coming up tomorrow. Boy, it's going to be a hot one too. I mean, these guys, Ollie's going to have to get creative in this one because you want to have your best guys out there, but you got to figure out a way to keep them all healthy with the doubleheader like that. So that's going to be interesting. But I just feel like there is a lot of opportunity to gain some ground. But you still look at it, even dropping that game yesterday, Cardinals still have a half game lead in the division, Dan. They're in a good spot right now because I don't even think they've come close to playing their best baseball, and you still have a first-place ball club.
That's right. Let's get into the Thompson start tonight. So be first Major League start, his second Major League appearance, and we saw him come in to the ball game and get 4 innings in his debut. There was another Thompson that picked up a save in his Major League. It was you, Brad, that got a Major League save in your debut, and Zack Thompson did that, so not a bad way to break into the big leagues.
Yeah, great way. And he did his, at Wrigley Field, big outing for him. It's that's an intimidating place to pitch in your first ever outing. And he did a really good job. I was talking to Zack a little bit the other day, and he was like, man, I got people reaching out to me on Twitter asking if we're family. I said, I got the same thing, but I waited until you pitched the first time. And then afterwards I said, yeah, that's my cousin. So had to make sure it checked out.
You're not a front runner at all though, Brad.
Oh, no. I just wanted to make sure it went well.
Yeah.
That's all. Is that a front runner?
Yes,
no, that's exactly what that is.
Totally is. Yeah,
it is for sure. But I'm glad that he's going to be getting this opportunity. So there have been a couple of spots in this rotation that have been open. Jack Flaherty's obviously been out the whole year. Maybe we'll talk about Jack here in a minute as he comes back on his rehab trail. And Steven Matz has been out with the shoulder. That's taken longer than expected. And I think longer than Steven, longer than the organization has expected for him to come back. So there are some chances for guys to make an impact. And this is a big opportunity here for Zack Thompson in this ball game tonight. I don't know how deep he's going to end up getting you in this game, but I do know this. He's got a fastball that plays, Dan. I mean, that thing, he was throwing it with command. He was getting in on righties. He's running it up there in the upper 90s. His breaking ball is legit. The big curveball, that's real. And he showed enough to me, and I'd like to see more of it in this ball game tonight, of the changeup, a good feel pitch right there to keep the righties honest. And you can bust him in with the fastball, throw that changeup away. I really think that Zack Thompson he's got good stuff. And this guy that struggled last year, man, he struggled in the minor leagues. ERA was up, but he made some tweaks at the end of the year mechanically, went to the fall league, was better, and showed up in spring training this year looking to turn some heads. And he was able to do that. So a big opportunity for him. When you watched him, though, in his debut, because you were there, I wasn't in Chicago. What did you see? What stood out to you?
Well, I thought he was you said it's a tough place to break in, and I'm with you, but he looked calm. And I think maybe a reason that he was calm is that he's from Selma, Indiana, and he grew up a Cubs fan, so don't hold that against him. He said, I'm no longer a Cubs fan. But he said family and friends there, he said it felt like home. He had been to that ballpark countless times. So that's number one. I think in a Major League debut, your emotions are so high, your heart's outside of your chest. Guys are so nervous, understandably so. So I thought he took on the moment, and he was calm. The thing that played for me, Brad, was his fastball. And his fastball, when I was hearing that they were thinking about bringing up Zack Thompson, I was like, well, okay. I mean, you got a number one pick, and you want to showcase him. You want to see that these guys make it. But his fastball got back to where it was supposed to be, which is, mid to upper 90s. And to your point, he had to go back last year to the pitching lab down in Jupiter and get away from the team and kind of go over and refine and redo all his mechanics. I thought his mechanics looked good. It was repeatable, and the fastball played, and he was throwing strikes. And that's been the biggest knock on him. And it started to change at the end of last year, going into the Arizona Fall League, and all of a sudden being able to throw strikes. And if he is inside the zone, his stuff plays. To me, it's kind of like Oviedo. With his stuff, it plays, but you got to be around the zone. And so he was pitching ahead in the count for the most part. And when you do that, you're going to have a chance to get big league hitters out. And that's what I saw out of Zack Thompson. So I'm excited to see that tonight. Now, tomorrow, Ollie telling us the other day, doubleheader, you got Liberatore going in game one. He said Michaelis will go in game two. Kind of a two-prong effect with this. Michaelis, it's supposed to be hot, as you mentioned, sweats a ton. And so they said, look, it's going to be hot at night, but not quite as hot in the middle of the day. Let's let him go in game two. And then Liberatore, the reason that they wanted him to go was that he made his debut against the Pirates, pitched well, and was now away from picking up his first big league win. But from the managerial side of things, Brad, I think it allows you then to set the rest of the day. So if Liberatore is good, gives you 5 or 6, it's kind of like a quote-unquote normal game. It sets up to maybe win the game with your big three, depending on what happens tonight. But if he comes out and doesn't give you a lot of innings, then you know how you're protected the rest of the way, and you feel that Michaelis can get you deep into a game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what both these lefties got going tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah, I am too. And with Matthew Liberatore, it's been a bit of a mixed bag, right? You mentioned the debut that he made against the Pirates, 4 2/3 in that one, ended up giving up 4. But then his next outing, and it's been his lone outing so far at Busch Stadium, and maybe there's something to that. But 5 innings, only 3 hits against the Brewers. He punched out 6 in that one, and he just looked from the time that he left the dugout, just jogging out to the mound, he looked in control of that ball game. And he never really looked like that in his third start against the Cubs in Chicago. Didn't have a feel for the breaking ball. Saw probably 3, 4, maybe 5 breaking balls pop out of his hand and almost go to the backstop on a couple of them. So I want to see what kind of feel he's got in this one. I like the idea of throwing him first, figuring out what your bullpen has to cover and how you, extend Michaelis in the second game. But again, I don't care who's pitching for you here, whether it be Zack Thompson or it's Matthew Liberatore or you have Miles Michaelis, who's been very, very solid this year. This is a Pirates team that you need to beat. And this is a team that you should be at the very least taking 3 of 4 from these guys. And it does start with the tempo of your pitchers. If you're pounding the strike zone, you got a chance against these guys.
I thought it was a pro's pro how Harrison Bader handled the benching for the lack of hustle over the weekend. I thought it was handled great on both sides. Ollie addressed it, took care of it. Harrison said, I understand it. He's right. It's a wake-up call even at the big leagues. We play a kid's game, and sometimes you got to be reminded to run everything out, hustle to your position, all those things. Ollie just nips it in the bud. And to me, this is the greater point, is that he is open and honest and direct with players. That's all players want. Just be honest. I may not like it, but at least you're honest. And I thought it was handled on both sides very, very well.
Yeah, you can live with that. You can live with it if there's communication on both sides. We talk about the communication oftentimes with the bullpen, how he utilizes some pieces at that back end of it. But when it comes to the hustle aspect of the game, sometimes, and Harrison Bader, make no mistake, Harrison Bader works hard, and he's a guy that truly cares about it. But sometimes that frustration sets in, and then the hustle part. And Harrison talked about it. He's an emotional player, but he understands that can't happen. You respect it, Dan. You're a father. You know this.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you can't just say it. Okay, it's like, hey, you better hustle. Ooh, you better do your chores. You better do it. Like there has to be consequences to if you're not going to do it, then you're not going to play. And that was the case in that ball game, because remember, that was a tight ball game late, and your best defender got taken out of the game, and Juan Yepes came in. And it was like, what is it? Did Harrison get hurt? It's like, no, like all he needed to make a point at that moment to make sure this didn't happen again. And just like, it's a mistake, and that's a mental mistake to not hustle out some different things. But we saw the physical mistake of Giovanni Gallegos against the Mets. He doesn't cover first base. Big time mental blunder. Ended up costing the Cardinals the game ultimately in that one. I see Gio busting his tail over the first base side every single time now, because you learn from the mistakes that you have. So you like to limit those things. But for Harrison, the way that he handled it, the way that Ollie handled it and had the accountability there for his guys, I think it's really important. And I think it speaks volumes for the rest of the season.
Let's wrap it up with this. Paul DeJong is starting to hit. And it's a great problem potentially the Cardinals could have, is him coming back and having figured something out mechanically, mentally, the break that he gets away from Major League Baseball, whatever the case may be. But at some point, you have to address it if he continues to hit. More home runs that he hit over the weekend. He's been hot in the month of June. At what point, Brad, do you think the Cardinals take a hard look and say, okay, let's bring him back up and see what we got?
Yeah, I personally would do it soon. I mean, if he's hot, he's got the 7 home runs in June, as you mentioned. He's hitting for average. He's doing a lot of things well. And as much as, you don't want to talk about the contract, it's still there. I mean, you still got paying him $6 million this year, I think $9 million the following year. Now, the Cardinals are obviously, they don't care about that as much because they're willing to have that sitting at AAA. But it comes to me like what pops up with him is the upside there. I mean, I know we've been talking about upside for a while with him ever since he had his 30 home run season, was an all-star in 2019, but I believe it's still there. So if you're getting glimpses of that, and it's twofold, right? It's the offensive upside that he provides, but it's also the ability to shift Tommy back to his natural position over at second base and solidify your defense, which the Cardinals use quite well. Now the question is going to pop up: what do you do with Nolan Gorman?
Right.
Well, you piece him in. Like we've already seen Ollie. I know they talked about it, and they didn't really want to have him DH. Well, what did he do the last couple of games? The guy, he was DHing in there. I think that you still find reps for him at second base. There are going to be days where maybe you bounce Tommy a little bit over the diamond. But to me, your team is the best, most complete when Paul DeJong looks like the Paul DeJong from a couple of years ago. And Sosa's been getting a tiny bit of a runway. He hasn't really taken advantage of it like he was last year. I mean, he straight up took the job from DeJong last year and did a really good job. I haven't seen those type of at-bats and those type of moments from Sosa right now, so I wouldn't be concerned about bringing Paul DeJong back.
All right, buddy. Thank you for doing this as always. We love doing this together. The Redbird Report, our podcast on 101 ESPN. And we've got baseball tonight. Looking forward to it.
Hey, let's have some fun tonight. Let's talk about a series win, and we'll catch up maybe on the back end of this series. I know you and I will be in Boston together, so we'll have plenty of good baseball to talk about.
Looking forward to it. That's Brad Thompson. I'm Danny Mack, and this is 101 ESPN.
You've been listening to the Redbird Report podcast with the TV voice of the Cards, Danny Mack, and Cards World Series champion Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN.